great to be with you all again and see familiar faces and new friends that we met just a week before in our open house, which was outstanding. The message for today is actually a simple message that I thought that I needed it very much. I actually did this lecture in a very selfish way because I needed it. And I joked with Susanna on the introduction. I thought you would put that. She asked me, give me a fun fact about you. And I'm a very boring person to give a fun fact about me. I said, what I'm gonna say.
There wasn't a fun fact. There is a very philosophical fact.
Right?
That's why I didn't put it.
All right, it
Share with
sounds
us.
true, but I'm going to share it anyway,
Yeah.
right? It's fun for me because that's a realization, right? I told her, well, you can say that I have been in the Spiritist movement or in the Spiritist for 25 years, but then you can also say that Spiritism just started to get into me recently. This is a very different thing. One for you to be in a movement, and the other is that message to get into your heart and your mind, right? And you need the study, the knowledge, the reflections, the meditations, but you need to walk the path of life and the challenges and fall and stumble and the pains and the hurt. And that when the message starts to make sense and relate, right? It's like someone teaching parenting without having kids, right? And I don't know about you, but I have seen a lot of people coming to us with, advice and all. It's hard, right? Or me recommending how to, sail a boat. I never had a boat. How can I say that? And sometimes when we are doing our reflections and lectures, a lot of that is what we are going through, right? What the Spiritism philosophy, what Jesus brought in his message to us without our personal take on it, because who we are to put our personal take, right? We are all full of mistakes, but also Susanna just also shared on self-love. We have our learnings, our virtues, but we are not perfect. So the message is always based on Spiritism. But we pick and choose based on what we are living sometimes, the topics, and it makes us reflect above all. So the topic for today is the battle within. Maybe for some you have seen lectures multiple times of this, but if not, you may think, well, what we're going to talk about battles here. There's so many battles already in the world, right? Turn the TV on and you see, wars. There is a very unfortunate one ongoing for too long, right? With Ukraine and Russia, or you see on the news the battles in our streets, right? With violence and gangs and drugs. Maybe in our way to the center today, or whatever you're watching us from, you may have encountered a battle on the road, right? Road rages. I don't know if you've seen that around, but today it feels like a battlefield. And we don't stop very often to reflect that those battles that are very visible to us, they come from the type of battle that is mostly invisible. That's the battle within that we're talking about. So our internal conflicts, right? In our hearts, in our heads. And we want to take a slightly different take from that today, because I've studied, I've seen lectures on this topic before, but one thing it came to realization is that when we are in this path for this battle, we're not alone. There are interferences that can make this battle easier or harder. And I'm going to touch, as we usually talk, a little bit about the battle within, but I'm going to add as well, what can we do to kind of protect ourselves or to help us to better succeed on this battle, right? And there's a very simple story about what are you talking about? What kind of battle is that, right? You may have seen or heard about the story of the two wolves, right? Which is a story about a Cherokee, an old Cherokee who was, willing to teach his grandson about life. And he started this little story about the two wolves. And he told his grandson, there's a battle going on within me. A battle of two wolves. There is one wolf that is evil, full of rage and selfishness, right? And anger and lies. But there is another wolf that is good, that is full of love, full of compassion, full of respect, self-love. He's kind. And he says, you also have this battle within you, as everybody else. And the little Cherokee, his grandson, stopped and thought for a second. He said, Grandpa, who wins, the good wolf or the bad wolf? And he says, the one you feed, right? Which relates to us, right? Because we have this duality within ourselves. Because we are imperfect beings. We have our vices and we have our virtues. The yin and yang, the good or bad, the evil versus good. And when we see evil, right, people doing mistakes, wars, criminals, you name it, we think they are pure evil. But no, they must have some sort of virtues. As we are here in the Spirit Center, we think, oh, they are really special, very nice people. Well, we have our imperfections as well. All of us, except one living, incarnated being in this planet, we can say, he was good. That's Jesus. As our model, as Allan Kardec says, right? So if you need to aspire to be like someone, it's him. Oh, he's too far. Well, we need to aspire to be like the right role model, right? So if we role model ourselves on each other, sooner or later we'll be disappointed, right? Including the speaker who talks to you this morning very much. So again, role models in Spiritism, let's look at Jesus, right? That's the recommendation from the benefactor Spirit Allan Kardec. But back to our inner battle, the battle of the wolves that we were just discussing, right? For some, this may be very vivid in our hearts, in our minds. It may even generate some physical sensations because we may be at the peak of that battle. For some, not so much, right? I remember the time that I lived life just cruising. Oh, nice. I had no thinking about anything, right? Or just enjoying life. And many people still live like that. We may be doing things improperly, wrong, and we may not understand when we talk about these battles consciously, right? But unconsciously, we all may have some signs that we may choose to ignore or maybe not notice, but our conscience always warned us. If we are living life, enjoying life, just cruising, as I said, right, not thinking about our purpose here in a selfish manner, or taking advantage, enjoying as much as I can, our conscience is certainly warning us. Because God gave us a gift. It's like your phones, doing a little analogy. Turn off your phone, turn it on again. Everything is there. Because there's a little memory. Even if it runs out of battery, completely drains out of battery, you recharge, it's there. Because there is a permanent memory there. Right? You can break the phone and get rid of the memory. In our case, God gave us a gift that we can die from a physical body and discarnate. It's always there. And you cannot destroy your spirit. So it's better than the phone. Because the phone will break, but we can break that gift, that memory that is always there with us, that is always on, which is the knowledge of the loss of God. the knowledge of the moral laws. It's our compass. And that knowledge will always tell us if we are acting, thinking, speaking, behaving according to those laws, or if we are deviating from those laws, right? So at certain moments in life, unconsciously, we may have that gut feeling that, hey, I'm doing this to Carlos. I don't care about Carlos, but there's something saying I shouldn't be doing this, but I don't care. I still do it because I'm ignoring, but my conscience is telling me. So we live life ignoring that battle. But sooner or later, every single one of us will have the moment where this battle cannot be ignored. That memory will blossom and will be in our face in a way that we cannot ignore. And we will say, yeah, I gotta change the course. And then it hurts because we started to evaluate how we are, what we have been doing, and compare with the right path, and we say, gee, I'm very far from this. I screwed up badly. So I don't know if this is relatable to some of you, right? If not, in the words of Emmanuel, if we still don't feel compelled or we don't understand this in a battle, they will come when we will, right? It's just part of our evolutionary path, right? To awake, to be awakened for the realities of our soul, the realities of immortality, right? It's like gravity. Doesn't matter if you believe or understand or not, it's there, right? Until the day we actually understand. So it's the same thing. If we think about inner battle, there is one figure in history that is impossible not to relate to the struggles and his example of that, which is Paul of Tarsus, who was initially called Saul of Tarsus, a very wise and rich person, well respected in the society at that time of Christ, part of the elite of the Synedrium, which was the Pharisees, the doctors of the law of that time, right? If Paul of Tarsus would park his car and come to the center today, he would be driving a Ferrari, right? And all the Christians that are here, we would all find an exit room or exactly a window, and we'll all jump out of the window because we knew we would be in prison and stoned or maybe condemned to death. He was loyal to the law of that time. He would persecute his friends, his family, it doesn't matter. Whoever was not according to the law of the Synedrium, the law of the Jewish at the time, was an enemy. Christians, it was his favorite sport to go after them. And he just didn't like Jesus at all. I'm just going to use this word, not the stronger word. Until the day that his conscience woke him up for this battle. Because he battled externally, he harmed people, right? That was his life, go to battle every day. But the battle was external. Until the day that his conscience brought up that inner battle. And you may say, well, Marcus, wait a minute. It wasn't his conscience, it was Jesus. Yeah, there was an occasion he was going to Damascus to persecute the Christians and trying to get the most active Christians at that time. And Jesus appeared to him in a road, right? And he fell from the horse, and it's like magic. It feels like magic. You just look at Jesus, and Jesus spoke with him. First thing he said is, Master, what do you want me to do? It feels like magic, because someone persecuting the Christians, all of a sudden, he tells Jesus, what do you want me to do? But it's not magic. It's simply because when Jesus appeared to him, he was ready, just didn't know. His spiritual maturity, his conscience was ready, and that was the spark that he needed, right? To change his life completely. He abandoned his path. All his parents, relatives, friends, all turned back on him. He started to go to the Christian churches. Everyone was afraid of him, right? He's imprisoning everyone. Now he's trying to be one of them. Is this guy is undercover, trying to come here and play nice and then imprison and kill all of us? So he was in a moment where no one trusted him anywhere, right? But he didn't change just because Jesus appeared to him and he decided to follow. He started a very long process of that inner battle. And he changed his name, trying not to scare the Christians, but it didn't go too far, right? Saul of Tarsus to Paul of Tarsus. But it was a change to just indicate his completely new life, right? Like reborn, if you will. But he started his inner battle only the old ways. When he wanted things, he would just accomplish by force. With now the new way of having patience and tolerance and humility, not pride, right? Not driving his Ferrari anymore, now walking on sandals in the dust and under the sun. So more than the external battles, it was the inner battle. He wanted to be patient, he wanted to be humble, but he couldn't. To the point that he often said, I don't do the good that I want to do, and I do the evil that I don't want to do. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
You know what we were talking about in the lecture, what we're reading the gospel. That's the right thing to do. I want to do that. Then we close the gospel, and then the food it's a bit salty, and we start arguing with our partner because you didn't cook this well. Why don't you cook yourself? And there you goes the gospel, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what Paul was talking about. That's the inner battle. And that's the change. And that's what I was alluding to, right? We got into the Spiritism, and we need to marinate until we open our hearts and our mind, let it in drive the change, right? Does this inner battle sound familiar to you guys? Yeah? Is it relatable? So that's the first message, right? And we don't need to answer, but we live in a life in such a hurry that it's important for us to stop and pause and assess, how am I doing? How am I doing? We certainly fail more than we succeed, right? But if we are at least catching ourselves failing, it's already a pretty good progress. Because not very long ago, we would fail and we would be happy failing. We would hurt people and we wouldn't even notice, right? And the battle that Paul talks about, what we're talking about here, if you hurt someone, sometimes it will scream in your head, in your heart, internally, what have I done? Should have done that. Or you're embarrassed because you screwed up, right? And the best we can do, if we have the courage, is go there and say, hey, I'm sorry. Sometimes we don't have that courage, right? But at least we catch ourselves doing that, and we don't feel good anymore, and we are embarrassed. That's a sign of progress. Back to the self-care plan here, right? We shouldn't beat ourselves because of that. It's a long way. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? It's a long way. However, we should look at what's the positive here. I'm now aware, and I don't like what I see, and I want to change, right? And proceed. Sometimes we feel lost, right? Sometimes at the peak of our youth, we have a lot of ideologies in life. We talk about our mission in life, or maybe at the beginning when we start to think about philosophy, we learn about spiritism, spirituality. What's our purpose in life, right? And the Spirit's book can help with that. Why are we here for? What's my purpose? And sometimes we get into our day-to-day, our conflicts, our challenges, the stress, And we lose sight of that, and sometimes we feel lost, right? We live one day after one day, paying the bills, going to work, dealing with kids and home, and we lose that, right? And I think that is another little assessment, right? Do I still remember why I'm here for? What's my purpose? But if not, I should be on that little list. Let us take the time to meditate and remind ourselves of that. Or if I have no clue, I never thought about that, I don't understand what you're talking about. Well, come to our courses. Ask one of us, have an informal conversation with someone, right? Because it's important. It gives us north, because life is short. Life is very short. Anyway, moving forward here, we discussed about the battle. We discussed about that the wolf that wins is the wolf that we feed, right? So the question for us is, what have we feeding? What have we been feeding, right? Our vices, our virtues. What are the role models? But let's assume, okay, I'm feeding the right wolf. And it will take a while for that battle to end, because the evil wolf, he has a lot of reserve. There's a big reserve of energy, right? Because he ate a lot. Now if you don't feed him anymore, he will be running on reserve for a while, so we need to be patient, right? So the battle won't end anytime soon. But how do we win, right? And Paul recommends us to win the battle, and that's the piece that was reflecting, and I personally sharing, right? I had my own experiences with my own interference internally by feeding the wrong habits, but also external experiences, right? External interferences. So Paul says, to win this battle, put on the armor of God. It's interesting, right? Armor of God. It's on the Thessalonians. He writes to the Thessalonians. Paul used to write to different, brothers and sisters and friends living in different places. So he wrote in this case to the Christians of Thessalonica, and he said, put the armor of God. Put on the armor of God. Because we are living spiritual war, if you will, right? And that's the interesting part. It's not that only this inner war, but there is also an external set of influences that we need to protect ourselves against. So when we think about armor, we think about war, battle, right? And that's exactly the case here. So we'll just quickly bring 3 of the pieces of equipment that Paul recommends us to use for this. There are more, I just picked 3. And then the group here will distribute those pieces for you. So mentally, as I go through them, you imagine that you are receiving a piece of the armor for yourself. You can take home, okay? It's light. It won't be heavy, even if you're walking home. So we'll be distributing pieces of the armor for you. If 3 are too many, you can pick one and take one, because usually we forget easily, right? So maybe 3 will be a lot. Pick one that you identify yourselves most with it, right? So the first one, he calls the helmet of hope. The helmet of hope. So at this moment, I put in your hands a helmet. A helmet is to put on your head, obviously, right? And he says to the Thessalonians, having the hope of salvation as a helmet. So how this helmet can help us in our inner battle, right? And it is obviously it's an analogy, right? It's a hope. The helmet is the hope of salvation. Because sometimes we really feel hopeless, right? And very appropriate what Susan was talking about earlier on that message, right? We look at the negatives, we look at our gaps, we look at our failures, and we feel sometimes hopeless. The suffering, the pain, the imperfections, the disappointments, especially when we put so many expectations on other people, we feel disappointed, we feel hopeless. We have so many failures, right? So many mistakes. We have so many mistakes, and we feel hopeless. And the intent from Paul here is to bring that hope as a protector for our heads. Because the head is where the seat of our thoughts are, right? That's how we use to build a rational faith, to think, to envision, to plan, as we just saw that initial message. So, hope of salvation. What salvation we're talking about? Often when we think about salvation, we imagine that, hey, I'll go to the church or to the center and I'll go and watch the lecture, watch the priest, I'll drink my water or have the little sacrament and go home. And if I do that until the end of my life, I'm saved. And saved means I'm going to the heaven, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. Dr. Bezerra de Menezes in the books, The Spirit of Truth, Lesson 3, he defines for us from the lenses of the Spiritism philosophy what salvation means. It's really to free ourselves from the ruins of yesterday. It's like an ancient city that was destroyed. That old man or old women that we leave behind as we embark on this transformation, those ruins, is to free ourselves from that. Leave that in the past, right? With all the vices, the mistakes, and also the guilt, leave behind. Or, in other words, free yourselves from our mistakes. That's the salvation. So this helmet that can protect our heads, our thoughts, can help us to move on from our disappointments, from our mistakes, in the hopes that, yes, we can improve ourselves and become better. Because we are destined, to the beginning of the conversation today, we are destined to happiness. We are destined to perfection. The relative perfection that we can all achieve. Not the perfection of God, but the perfection that Jesus taught us and exemplified that we can achieve one day in the millennia ahead. Right? The interesting thing with this analogy of the helmet is that here's what Emmanuel talks about this. Protect us against the contrary forces that oppose the gospel of salvation. Should the contrary forces that oppose the gospel of salvation should raise anesthetizing negativity at the enthusiasm of learners. So as we are going through our journey, we have companions, as Paul says, there is a cloud of witness around us. Companions from past existences or current existences, they are observing. And as we start our transformation, many of them don't like it. They don't want it. And then they start to interfere with the rays of anesthetizing negativity. Right? And this resonated really well with me in present times because I struggle a lot. And even and it was a long journey trying to stop smoking. I'm glad I did. I don't remember even how long it was. It's a long time ago. But I'll tell you, my dad used to say, there's a lot of people that will come to you and offer a cigarette, offer a drink of cachaça, but people to offer you a book or a plate of food, you won't find it easy. Right? And in my case, I was stopping to smoke. Oh man, everyone would come and try to bring me back. My friends, what's going on with you? What's wrong? No, here it is, the last one. There's the last one. And I fall back multiple times. Right? So this is exactly what Paul is talking about here. Not only discarnate spirits, but incarnate spirits also, who sometimes may be acting influenced by discarnate spirits. Right? I just use one example, right? It could not even be addiction. It could be like you're stopping gossip or criticizing, you complaining, which is some of my struggles as well, complaining, right? There's always someone who brings you back. So this is the awareness that we need to be vigilant at all times, right? And that's the analogy for this helmet, right? Think that even if you fail, it's okay. Bring it back. It's like meditation, right? Your mind just wanders, okay, bring it back. And that's this process of inner transformation, this battle within. We just need to be aware and bring yourselves back to the track. There's one example here that I thought about interesting to bring from the book Action and Reaction, chapter 8, that talks about two, I think it's father and son, who were obsessed with money, and there were a number of spirits around them obsessing them even further, right? They were getting ill and sick and attached because of greed. They own a farm and they used to dream with money, and then there were a few benefactors, spiritual benefactors that came to help them, right? And once they were there, they managed to get a conversation with those spiritual obsessors, and they explained to them what they were doing. And they said, well, here's how we are exploiting them, because they own us. They did something really bad in the past, now we want revenge. So we find their central team. What is the thing that they always have in their minds? In their case, it was money, possessions. So we find that central team, and then we bring a number of spirits around to inject more thoughts around the same. Spirits that also are have the same central team, focus on greed, right? And we bring them to boost that. It's like adding energy to a battery, right? And at some point it accumulates so much it may just explode, right? It keeps accumulating. So they are overwhelming the system. So they were overwhelming their senses in the point that they were most weak and vulnerable, right? And attached. And they say, well, how did you learn all this? Oh, we learned in the school of Avengers. Right? Why did I bring this? Because there are spirits we don't know, right? Those who we may have hurt in the past could be influencing our thinking, right? Maybe, right? Our central team could be, I feel that I am unable to do certain things. I have a very low self-confidence. What do? Self-confidence. Let's exploit that. And send them these thoughts of, you cannot do that. Who are you to do a lecture? Who are you to help at the center? Who are you to be in this position of work? Who are you to have that promotion of work? We are bombarded at all times. And because we ignore, we buy those thoughts as if they were our thoughts. So that is the danger, right? So we can't ignore and say that our inner transformation is up to us. Yes, it is up to us, right? This inner battle is internal. Yes, it is internal. But once we decided to walk that path, as Paul warns us, we need to be vigilant and we need to protect ourselves, right? With the helmet of hope and the salvation. Hope that, yes, we can get out of this path. And I'm going just to cut it short a little bit here because of the time. And the last thing, I'll just give you two. So keep the helmet in mind. The other one he says about, let us be vigilant, again, to the Thessalonians again, let us be vigilant or alert. putting the breastplate of faith and charity. So the breastplate, if you remember the Roman soldiers, right, it's like the thick leather protection that they have on their chest. And these are the vulnerable parts that they may, in a battle, they would look first, right? Your head or your vital organs. And that's what Paul is giving that analogy, right? To preserve the heart, the source of our sentiment and vibrations of ardent love, providing us with high understanding of the struggles in our daily lives. And he says that it's very difficult to overcome these opposed forces in our day-to-day if we don't have the breastplate of faith and charity. Because see what's happening in the world right now, right? People cutting you on traffic. You go to the grocery store. There's fights sometimes to catch the first item on the last item on the shelves. You have challenges at home, challenges at work, and everywhere. And if we are not paying attention, we become someone, as Emmanuel says, in a constant state of irritation, a constant state of anger, a constant state of indignation, and excessive strictness, because we expect everyone to be perfect when no one can be perfect in this planet, right? For the parents, the alarm, right? That's the reality. But why faith and charity can do that? Because when we see someone hurting us or doing something, there's two choices, right? One, you do what we have been doing maybe for millennia. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, give it back. Which is not the answer, because that cycle will never end. What was the main teaching for us of Jesus? Forgive. Love your enemy. Stop that cycle. So we see this craziness on the traffic, or at work, or at home. Someone needs to give the first step to break that cycle. And who is going to be? That guy that cut you on the road that had no idea about religiosity or moral laws or about Christianity or Spiritism? Are we expecting that person to do that? Or we are the ones who should do that because we already know? Is that easier? No. Does that make us feel less bad? No. But back to our inner battle. We want to make a gesture, but we better not, because we need to choose another path. And if we don't have faith in charity, because this is charity, right? Understand that that person is not in a state that we can expect something from them, and they will have to adjust the course in due time, but my time has arrived. Our time has arrived. Therefore, I should be the one doing that. Does that make sense? The analogy of the breastplate, right? And how the heart plays a role. In the world it is the way it is today, because our brains are just marvelous machines, but our hearts continue to be poor. We haven't invested, and that's what we do a little bit here, a little bit every day, right? That's why Allan Kardec said, right, as one of the most important teachings of the Spiritism, there is no salvation without charity. Back to the helmet, right? The hope for salvation. There is no salvation without charity. Because if we live as we lived before, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, the world, internal and external, will continue to be a battlefield, right? And we need to start, as Paul said, fighting the good fight in this inner battle, so we don't need to fight the bloody fight of the millennia, and hope one day we'll leave that behind us, sad memories of the humanity, right? Friends, that's it. I'm skipping a lot of stuff because of time, But I just wanted to close what Paul said. Be vigilant and pray. Along the way in a battle, we're not alone. We tend to forget. I forgot so many times. I think, I'm doing things alone is difficult. We're not alone. We always have our guardian angel or protector spirit with us. And we have friends with us. If we're facing struggles, there is a fraternal meeting in the center. You can book a private time and talk to someone here at the center. And above all, no, forgive me. Equally important, sometimes if we're living of some of this imbalance, some of these battles for too long, we may have even organic impediments, and we may need to seek medical help. And I speak by experience. And be aware, right? If there are anxiety and challenges and fears and we're unable to function anymore, ask for help. We're not alone, but sometimes we may need to see a doctor as well, right? Rational faith teaches us to also use the resources of earth and spirituality. I hope it was useful to you all, friends. It was to me. Thanks for your time.